Welcome to the REDHEADREVEAL podcast, where we reveal what it means to truly connect. I'm Jenn Pinkerton, your Redhead host. I'm a psychotherapist, high-performance coach, sexologist, writer, and speaker. As a connection expert, I help people transform by exploring the root causes and beliefs and behaviors that hold them back. Let's talk about living a life where you thrive. Everybody has conflict. Conflict is inevitable. But there's a really big difference in having conflict where you stay connected during conflict. And that truly is about one key thing, which is validation. Validation can be this bridge between the defensiveness that we all as humans want to go into and the outcome which we all desire, which is connection. And understanding more about how our nervous systems work to keep us safe, understanding that when we are struggling in conflict, it's not because we don't care. It's because our nervous system is on overdrive trying to protect us, trying to make us feel safe. And as I've talked about many times, at any given time, all of us are just searching and scanning for emotional safety. At any given time, all day long, it's subconscious. It's a primal desire. It's a primal need. And so when we're in conflict, especially when we're in conflict with somebody with high emotional content, somebody we have an emotional investment with, this is especially true because we have more at stake. We have more vulnerability there. We have more opportunities for pain, for abandonment, for loss. And so it becomes really sticky sometimes to be able to navigate conflict in a healthy way. So when you're in conflict and you're arguing, you're disagreeing, you're going back and forth, and you begin to escalate. There begins to be this pattern where voices get louder, people get more intense, it feels more heavy, it feels maybe a little volatile. And we're trying to be heard, and we're also trying to deny or prove or explain. We're trying to make sure we get our point across, and we're getting nowhere. We're just continuing to make this bigger and bigger and bigger. And oftentimes, both people are left feeling really empty, or really stuck, or maybe somebody's really mad. Maybe someone's gone into one of the 4 trauma responses we talk about. Maybe someone has started to try to fix and accommodate and make themselves small. Maybe somebody has gone into anger and they're lashing out and they're into fight. Maybe someone has just gone into freeze and they've shut down and they've withdrawn from the conversation. Or maybe someone's gone into flight where they're just moving past it, moving on, and it never gets resolved. None of those things are going to get you to a place where you feel like your conflict is healthy and where you feel like it can be productive, and much less where you feel like you've stayed connected. So what is validation? Validation is the approach of being able to validate and accept and honor someone's emotional feelings in that moment without trying to fix it, to deny it, to defend it, to explain it away. It's just sitting in that space, truly like holding space for that person to be able to acknowledge their pain, their feelings, their lived experience, whatever that may be. And it feels sometimes really awkward, especially if when you're hearing them say something, your immediate go-to is, that's wrong. I don't believe I did that, or I don't see it that way, or I completely disagree. And we can't get out of that rut of wanting to do that. And so validation steps in looking very different. Validation would be able to slow down everything, to sit in the place of just going to the feeling. And any of my clients that have worked with me know that when I say going to the feeling, this is what I mean. It means put everything else aside, all the noise. And it's only about, what does my partner feel? Not what I feel, not what I want to explain, not what I want to deny, not what I want to defend. I'm just listening to understand with compassion and curiosity. And so being able to validate is sitting in that space, and maybe it sounds like, I'm so glad you told me. Maybe it sounds like, I hate that I hurt you. Maybe it sounds like, I can see you're really frustrated. Anything that acknowledges the feeling and acknowledges the experience, where you're staying with that and you're not moving on to anything about you. And you're not moving on to something that happened last week. And you're not moving on how they do the same thing. You're not moving on to try to get out of this moment. You're comfortable and compassionate and curious and connected to stay in that moment with someone else and be glad that you understand what they're feeling. That can feel so uncomfortable, especially if we've grown up in an environment where that wasn't normal. So our attachment wounds and our trauma absolutely comes into how we handle conflict. Because if we're used to feeling sensitivity or being activated around criticism, and we denote that something someone's saying to us is criticism, we might immediately be off to the races. If we are in this conversation and maybe it's just too much vulnerability for someone who has not had a comfort level of sitting with their feelings, maybe they were raised in an environment where you didn't talk about your feelings, where it wasn't okay to express your feelings. So that right there, we're off to the races again. Those examples illustrate that our wounds can absolutely shape how we handle conflict and what we do in the moment with conflict. Now, whenever I explain this to people, the immediate answer is usually, well, what about me? I don't agree. I don't agree that they should be feeling that way. I don't acknowledge that I did those things. And the point is, you don't have to. You don't have to sit there and agree with everything, because it's not about agreement. It's about acknowledgement of the feeling. It's about saying, I'm glad you told me. It's about, I hear you're upset. It's about, I can see how that would really affect you. It doesn't mean you'll never get a chance to talk about why you feel differently. It means that that's just not the moment to do it. We want to make our partners feel as though when they bring up something that's about an unmet need, that we are focused and we care and we're curious and we're going to stay connected. We can then come back to our partner and say, I want to circle back on that conversation. I feel like there's some things I wanted to say. Would this be a good time? We ask for that buy-in. We're able to then flip the tables where they can hear how you feel. If you were the person that was holding space before, they can hear you express your needs or thoughts about it. And in fact, it might go way more smoothly because you were able to do that for them. They might now look at you and see, well, I can see how that would feel that way to you. I'm glad you told me that. Let's talk about that. Let's break that down. And this is when the act and the art of repairing can sometimes happen by having that second conversation. But it only works if the first conversation was full of validation, not full of defensiveness. The nervous system in conflict also is a key part of this, not just your wounds or your trauma. Because when we feel activated, our nervous system, in essence, goes offline. We are functioning out of the upper part of our brain, the lizard part of our brain, which is highly emotional and can be really focused on how things feel, versus being in the lower part of our brain, where we're more responsible for operational logical thought. And if we're up in that upper part of the brain, until we come down, we're not going to be able to make good decisions. We're not going to be able to feel rational. We're not going to be able to feel in control. And so if you feel that your emotions are out of control, that's when we have to go back to nervous system work. We have to go back to our somatic work, using our body to connect it to our mind, slowing down, and employing some sort of grounding technique, whether it's breath work, tapping, grounding outside, cold water. There's so many different things you can do that we talk about on this podcast to ground yourself in that moment. But if you feel like you're offline, you're going to have to get back online to have this conversation. What your partner needs during conflict is safety, not a list of things they should have done differently. They need safety, not a list of the things that they did the same thing of 2 weeks ago. They need regulation and they need co-regulation. For your bodies each to mirror an energy of calmness and of connection, and that takes both of you being in the same place. If you are calming and soothing to your partner when they express their needs or their unmet needs, you're going to get so much more out of that conversation. But it is natural for our instant thought to be to defend ourselves because we're not safe. So this really takes a different perspective. It takes looking at your partner thinking they're not out to hurt me. They actually love me. So I want to stay grounded where I am here and really listen and not be so ready to tell them how they're wrong. And that is when everything can shift, because once we have safety, then everything else feels so much better. Some questions to think about are, am I trying to win or am I trying to understand? Some questions to consider are, is there a winner and a loser? Is there, I have to make certain that this person knows they are wrong. I have to be heard. I have to explain it. I've got to defend. I've got to deny. Am I talking out of ego? And when you start to look at things differently in that way, with that viewpoint, it can then actually feel very different to you. So I challenge you, the next time you're having a conversation with your partner and they say, I really want to talk to you about something, can you take a deep breath? Can you slow down right then and calm down and be prepared that no matter what they say, your answer is going to be, I'm here, I'm listening, tell me more, I want to understand, or I'm sorry, I can see that hurt you. I hate that it hurt you. I love you. I'm so glad you told me about this. Let's process this together. If you're sitting in that place, instead of immediately going to your defense, the whole conversation could turn out different. You might have conversations that are 5 or 10 minutes instead of an hour where you're fighting, where it carries over into the next day or the next week. We're actually able to stay regulated, to be emotionally mature and self-aware adults, and work through conflict in a healthy way. Because as I said before, conflict is inevitable. There is no partner that you're ever going to have where you're not going to have a fight. It's impossible. You're not human clones of each other. We're not robots. We each have our own feelings and our own baggage and life experiences and wounds that we bring to the table. So we have to understand, how do we navigate that? This is how you navigate it, with validation. So the sequence of how this would go, if I could lay out the utopian way that you would manage some conflict, it would be that one partner says to the other, do you have a second? I want to talk to you about something. And that's the first step. We're getting buy-in. We're getting our partner to say, sure, hold on, let me finish doing what I'm doing, or I want to finish making dinner, we'll talk in a minute, or sure, let's go sit down over here. You then know you have their undivided attention. Because if we ask someone to talk about something when they're walking out the door, they may already be dysregulated before we even started. They may be hurried, they may be anxious for whatever reason. So being able to calmly ask for that and get buy-in is crucial. The next step would then be to express the concern, to talk about the problem, to talk about what you're feeling. The next step after that is to pause. Power in the pause. I say it all the time. Slow down enough to think about your answer and try to give a response that is compassionate, that is about loving them, that is about your interest, that is about your care and concern. And then once you've done that, hopefully they're able to stay regulated too. And then you can process that together. Once you've validated those feelings, how can we make sure this won't happen again? What is the way that we're going to repair this? What would make you feel better? How could we not have it happen in the future? And are we good? So we're having this possible repair. We're having this possible plan to avoid it. And then we're having this close the loop co-regulation at the end that ends with, I love you. I'm glad you told me. And here's a hug and my hand's on your knee. And we're connected. If you can touch during conflict, you're doing really well. Being able to stay where you're feeling emotionally present and where you actually love this person. Even if they're saying something you don't necessarily agree with, you have to agree that their feelings are valid. And so you want to hear it and sit with it. Now, if during that time you can't do it and you feel yourself getting heated, you feel yourself starting to defend or explain or deny or prove, stop. Power in the pause again. Harness that power. Say, I don't feel like I'm showing up as my best self. I need a minute. And go take 10 minutes and go ground yourself. Breathe, tap, go outside, drink some cold water, splash your face, do some jumping jacks. Move your body to reset your nervous system or your vagus nerve, be able to come back and say, now I'm ready. Now, the key is the coming back part. If you do that and you don't come back, you're going to trigger feelings of abandonment in your partner. Things get not resolved. And now we're in a bigger place than we were to even start. So the person that steps away has to be the person that comes back to initiate that conversation. So think about that as well. And then once you're talking it through, if you're in your mind, think, I really wanted to say XYZ. I really wanted to talk about my part of that. Make some notes in your phone. Record a voice memo. Then later, when no one's dysregulated, when this conversation is past, so it doesn't feel like tit for tat, you can come back and say, hey, if you have a moment, I would like to talk about something that came up for me in that prior conversation. Can we do that? And then we do the same exercise flipped. Both of you feel heard. Everybody feels validated. Nobody has feelings of abandonment. Nobody's searching for emotional safety, and nobody got defensive. Nobody denied. Nobody proved. Nobody accused. It can be a really different feeling and frankly, quite transformative on how you work through issues together. If during that you also feel like I'm still getting so hung up every time I'm taking 5 breaks, maybe you say to your partner, I'm feeling so triggered. When this thing is said, it immediately puts me here, and I'm really trying to grow and do this better. Even the acknowledgement, almost of calling out the 10,000-pound elephant in the room that I'm struggling here, sometimes is enough to feel that validation and continue forward. It depends on the person. It depends on the conversation. My point is, it doesn't always have to mean 10 breaks talking. It can mean sometimes just being able to say, I'm struggling for a second. Let me take a deep breath. And we slow down. If in doubt, you always pause. Power and the pause until infinity. It is so important to master that skill of slowing things down. I really do kind of believe that not much bad will happen if everything slows down. It's when we are anxious and hurried and going into these trauma responses and we're ready to fight or freeze or flight or fix, and everything's happening so quickly that we get into some big trouble here in our relationships. So to wrap up this concept, conflict isn't a problem. It's an opportunity for intimacy, for connection, for vulnerability, for growth. Conflict doesn't have to be a bad thing. Just remember that our nervous systems are ready to protect us, and we can give ourselves the pat on the back that our body has developed coping skills to keep us safe. That's beautiful. That's wonderful. But it's not beautiful or wonderful if we're allowing it to have all the power when we're having a conflict, if we're allowing it to run rampant. We have to be able to acknowledge, okay, you know what? I have some coping skills. They may be maladaptive right now. They don't work in conflict. I'm going to set them over here, and I'm going to try to really just sit here in the pool, in the space with my partner, validating their feelings, going to the feeling. And that's it. I assure you, the first time you do it, you're going to feel left as though I didn't get heard. I wasn't heard. Okay, I hear you. But wait and circle back. Because even if you're just taking turns doing that, it'll feel a hell of a lot better than what you're doing now. Healing happens when we choose attunement over ego, when we choose connection, when we choose to hold space for each other. So I'm going to challenge you. Go hold space for each other and really try to invite connection during your next conflict.